Hey, what are you at, boys? My name is Troy and welcome back to Facility D20. Today we got a pretty cool project. We're going to take an old 5-gallon bucket and we're going to turn it into some pretty cool D&D terrain. The plan here is to turn this into a wizard tower. I think it worked out quite well. Let me take you in and show you how I accomplished this. The first thing I'd done was grab a bucket that was lying around. Mark some lines on it and figured I'd cut her right down the middle. Angle grinder came in handy. Love seeing those sparks fly. Then it was just a matter of cutting and bucking the two. So Candelkeep is pretty cool. Candelkeep was a tower, a library fortress that stood on a crag overlooking the Sea of Swords. The library was filled with books and scrolls of knowledge. It was considered the greatest collection of writings in all of Faerun. It was home of the great seer Alandro, who foresaw the coming of Baalsman over a millennium before the crisis of the 14th century, according to Wikipedia. Aside from the etiquettes dictated by the stronghold's keepers throughout the years, Candelkeep had but one absolute rule. Those who destroy knowledge with ink, fire, or sword are themselves destroyed. It's pretty wise words there. So then I just hit it with some black primer, just so that I had something for the next coat to stick to. Here I use some Krylon natural stone. So when you're using this stuff, you want to give it a lot of light dustings over and over and over and just work that texture up. This process here you see me do here, I done over 2 days until I had a couple of coats, until it started to look like this. Then I needed to cut out the floor, so I just used the bucket as a template, grabbed skill saw, and just cut out some semicircles. Little test fit. Cut out the second one, and I figured I'd just go with 2 stories. Then I took a bunch of popsicle sticks and just cut the ends off them, and my plan here is to use these as floorboards, like some hardwood floor. Man, if somebody made popsicle sticks that had those round edges cut off, they'd make a fortune in the hobby world. So, not too bad so far. I gave it a clear coat just to make sure I stick all those flakes on there. Cut up a bunch of popsicles I'm going to use for floorboards. It doesn't look like much yet, but I got confidence that this is going to come together pretty good. So let's keep going, see how this thing turns out. Quick dry carpenter's glue here was perfect for this project. Went on nice and clean and dried pretty fast. So I just staggered these floorboards as I placed them down. Just try to do a nice neat job here. So guys, if this is your first time to my channel, thanks for stopping by and checking me out. Go ahead and smash that like button, and if you like what you see, subscribe. It'd be real nice to try to get my content out to more people. I cut up a few pieces of SM, and the plan is to paint these up brown and make them look like big logs of wood. So I'm going to use them for baseboards and beams and stuff to try to bring in some contrasting colors in just a round structure to build, and all the gray, try to bring in some browns. I think it's going pretty good. I got confidence that it's going to look pretty cool in the end. Just going to continue on and see how it turns out. So here guys, I just mixed up some base coat, and I like to put some Mod Podge in this because it helps protect that styrofoam. So I just mixed it about 50-50. Add a little bit of water, shook it up real nice, and there you go. You got a nice base coat for any SM or foam work you do. This helps protect it. You can even spray paint over this once it dries without risking melting everything to pieces. Then I went ahead and I just cut off the excess popsicle sticks. Overall, this project took about 2 or 3 or 4 nights maybe working on it, about 45 minutes, maybe an hour a night. So the whole thing probably took me about, I'd say 4 or 5 hours overall. Then I just grabbed some wood stain that I had lying around and just whacked it on there, just kind of nice and thick, and figured I'd let it dry up over the next couple days. And this actually came out really, really nice. This is one of the parts of this project that I was most happy with. Let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? What part do you feel like came out real well, and what part not so much? I gotta say, at this point though, I wasn't super confident about how this build was gonna turn out. So these log beams that I'm making here, I just hit them with a dry brush. I was going to wash them down with some earth shade or mix up my own brown wash, but I figured, nah, I'll just do it simple. And I mixed up some DAS air dry clay, rolled it out, and placed it in the bottom of the bucket. Just cut it to fit. Here you can see how this stone pattern is actually quite nice, working out quite well. My plan here with the bottom floor is to have it a little different, considering it's the ground floor. I decided I want to make this out of cobblestone. But here's where I made a bit of a mistake. I went ahead and I glued this down thinking I'd be able to put the roller in and do like a circle pattern. But I don't know, I don't think that would have worked. So I pulled it back out full of glue and then rolled the pattern in it. Which of course caused me a little bit of problems trying to fit it back in. But, you know, after a bit of work it went in. I know for next time now. So again, trimmed it up, fitted it back in there, and a nice worn looking cobblestone floor. Here I decided to drill some holes in the opposite end of each of these floors so that I can put the staircases moving upwards. I wish I had a smaller drill bit for this, but I was stuck between that one and a small one. So I'm thinking before I can go any further with this project, I gotta go ahead and put on those 2 floors, the spiral staircase, put on some of the beam work that I made, to kind of make this thing start to come to life, to see what I can do for the next steps. So I'm gonna go ahead now and bring you guys in and start to assemble this thing, and hopefully it comes to life and starts to take shape, and you can kind of see what I'm trying to do here. It was time to place the floors in. I just marked them off like 4.5, 5 inches. A little bit of hot glue to keep them in place here. Pretty much got them lined up by eye level. The nice thing about fantasy stuff, if things are a little lopsided and squished, it just kind of fits the theme. So I'm not too worried about keeping it perfectly plumb. Pre-drilled a few holes, put in a couple of screws just to make sure it was nice and tight and that would never fall out of there. Split the wood a little there, but I figured I had a plan for that. Second floor, same situation. Whacked it in place, and then it was time for some of these beams. And the point of this was just to clean up these edges, just so they don't look like a bucket cut in half too much. It's meant to simulate a turret of a tower. Then of course I just added in the beams here to get rid of that raw plywood edge, kind of tie the look together. And I still wasn't super confident at this point how this was going to turn out, but I continued on, added some floorboards, some baseboards here in the 3 levels. This is just sliced up blue SM. Then this is the Mod Podge base coat mix, just a nice dark gray on those cobblestones. Nice and thick in there. Some cheap acrylic paint and a really fast dry brush, overbrush. Add a little bit of color. 3D printed some spiral stairs from Thingiverse. I'll link it in the description. I think I done like 35 of these it took or so. These got together pretty cool. You just build them up as high as you want. I scaled them up from the original file, 150%, so they're a little bigger. These are going to be more for looks. I doubt you'll get a model to fit on them. And the reason I use hot glue here is because I just didn't have the time to wait for the crazy glue to dry. For some reason on PLA it takes a little too long to dry. Then it was time to put them in place. Some more acrylic paint to give them a quick dry brush, just to add a little bit of depth of color to them. This is why I printed them in brown. Actually, I didn't really want to paint them, so I figured, hey, brown, perfect. Give them a dry brush, and then later a quick wash, just like I'm washing the cobblestone here in some null oil. Some earth shade for the steps, and you know, fit in nicely. So the brown PLA worked out. So this thing is not quite finished yet. It's not quite where I want it to be. I still got some beams I want to add down in the bottom, maybe some more along the sides here. I think I'm going to put in some flickering tea lights in a couple of these levels, just to give off like that amber glow in there. And I think when I start to fill this full of bookshelves and tables and stuff, it's really going to start to look like a library. So far so good. Took a bit of a chance here on this bucket project, but I think it's turned out pretty cool. So I'm just going to continue on until I got her done. Hopefully I can finish her tonight. Time to pop a few holes in there so I can wire in some tea lights. I'm starting to get a little more confidence in this project now. It's starting to come together pretty nicely, I think. So I just got a set of tea lights from the dollar store and busted them apart. I didn't like these tea lights. I had some other ones in the past that had like an actual switch on them. These didn't really have that, but I made it work. So just got a little bit of wire, and I don't have a soldering iron small enough to deal with this, so I just twisted it and used a bit of heat sink to kind of keep it in place. Done that for both sides. And when it was all said and done, I had a nice little neat light here, nice little neat LED light that I just fed through my hole here. Bit of hot glue to keep it nice and tightly in place on the back, a little bit on the front. Added the torch light back on top of it. Use the bottom piece, just glued it straight onto the bucket. This is going to hold the battery. Fed in one wire on the bottom, glued it in place. Place the battery in. Feed the other wire just on top and use the battery clip to keep it in place. And that turns the lights on. So when I need to turn them off, I just pull out that wire. Here I added a few more beams up and down just to break the walls up a little bit. And added a beam on the bottom to clean up that hard looking line. And now this is where I started to get confidence with this project. I used some bottle caps that I cut off to just act as holders for the torch lights on the wall. They fit nicely. And then I painted them up in some dark silver. Here I wish I had a smaller drill bit, so what I decided to do was just add some floorboards over the top here. Here are some finishing shots. You can see I stained up the rest of those popsicle stick baseboards, painted the holders for the torch lights, and that was it. Loaded it up with some scatter terrain, and all of a sudden it's really looking like a library. I think for some quick and fast stone texture, that spray paint actually worked out on this bucket. If you're going to do that on foam, make sure you use some Mod Podge to help protect it before you spray it so it doesn't melt it. Popsicle stick flooring look nice. Overall, looking pretty good. I think the flickering tea lights added a lot to the ambience of this project, and I like the cobblestone floor too. This certainly came a long ways from an old bucket. At the end of the day, I'm pretty happy with how this thing turned out. It was a pretty fun little build for a random idea. I kind of want to go back to this project and maybe take the other half of the bucket, flip it around, put it on top of this thing, and just keep going and build a real spectacle of a tower here. I might actually do that one of these days. Can't wait for my players to see this. Can't wait to play in Candelkeep, and it should be a good time. Smash that like button. Check out some other build videos on the channel. We got a lot to come in the future. Catch you next time, guys.